Hey, I'm Suzanne Tedkamar. I used to write for a place called Patheos, a column called No Longer Quivering that had to do with the quiverful, evangelical, non-denominational movement, like the taco churches I talk about sometimes. Totalitarian, authoritative church organizations. So I've done a lot of research through the years in this stuff, and I've written a great deal about it. So that's my bona fides to talk about this. I wanted today to do another book review, but I said I was going to finish up Ginger Duggar's book. I did not. I've just been really busy. If you can see behind me, I am washing all my bedding. I'm wearing a sweater because I'm freezing my cojones off because it's cold here. So I may be salty, but I'm also quite cold today because I'm having to run the AC to pull the humidity out and it's raining. So I was not able to look at her book. I started looking at Doug Wilson's book about marriage and started gagging like so don't believe I'm about to talk about today, even if their book sucks. So this is Handbaskets from Handbaskets to Hell book reviews. I call it that because every time I would do these book reviews on No Longer Quivering, I would get people that were telling me I was going to hell. And I always laughed about it and said, well, let me decorate my handbasket. Let me put in some candles and some snacks, some soft pillows, a blanket, whatever. And it was always my big laugh because they always accused me of this. And I always laughed about it because it was ridiculous. So I'm going to do a little bit today from Lori Alexander's book. Lori Alexander, if you know or don't know her, writes out of a blog called The Transformed Wife. Years ago, Lori Alexander read Debbie Pearl's book, Created to Be a Helpmeet, and took it to heart and became very submissive. Here's where that goes off the rails and goes crazy. A few years ago, well, more than a few, like 7 or 8, she wrote a book called The Power of the Transformed Wife, all about her journey to be a submissive wife. And I did a lengthy multi-part review for NLQ, just like I had done with Debbie Pearl's Create a Better Brain Through Neuroplasticity. And I just finished up in just way too many pieces. So I went in to start looking at the Lori Alexander thing because I wanted to talk about it a bit. And Patheos has removed all of it. I have a couple of pieces of it, so I'm going to talk in general about the book. Then I'm going to go over the 2 of the worst chapters because this is really too good, too bad to not touch. The book, like I said, it's her journey ministry. And it starts off talking about how miserable their marriage was. Before they even got married, they were fighting like cats, dogs, and parrots. Couldn't get along. She talked a lot about, at the beginning, at their wedding reception, getting very angry with Ken because he had Ritz crackers and squeezy cheese in a can. You know, I don't like that stuff. It tastes like salt to me, pure salt, but everything does because of Lyrica. So I wouldn't personally eat it, but if my husband started trying to eat it, I would not be picking a fight with him about that. You pick your fights in your marriage, your battles, over serious stuff. Like if your spouse refused to go to the doctor and you knew that they were going to maybe pass if they didn't go ahead and fix whatever was wrong. Things like that. If your partner was going to say, "Hey, I heard of this really great business opportunity to buy these little pictures for $100,000 each," those are the things you would intervene in, not him eating squeezy cheese or a Ritz cracker. I had a giant box of Ritz crackers. Now I almost never eat them because, again, salty. I don't eat that much salt. But it would not be something I would pick a fight about. But it was interesting because in that chapter where she was talking about this, she said later that even if your husband were to live on lard with a giant spoon, spoon the lard in, and have a heart attack. Well, she didn't use the example of lard. Lard would be something I would use example. That if your husband eats all bad stuff and dies of a heart attack or whatever, that's not your fault. Well, ding, it's not your fault. But at the same time, there's something between those two. There's a happy medium there between fighting with him for eating very normal processed foods that a lot of people eat and him pigging out on ice cream and lard and whatever. There's a happy medium where maybe you say, hey, honey, I see you're eating a lot of X, Y, or Z. Maybe you should try some vegetables with that. I've done it. I've said it. Heck, I have redone recipes to put vegetables in them to get my family and my kids to eat them. But not Lori. It's all feast or famine. The other thing I remember from the book was she was talking about when she first started dating that her mother didn't warn her about boys, didn't warn her that they were going to try to get into her pants and go out to Passion Lane and make out. And there was an incident in the book. I don't know if it was she was told she was being taken to the submarine races or something similar and got into an argument with the guy. Well, her and I are largely the same age group. She should have known by then. If she was a mean girl cheerleader like she seemed she was from everything she said about it, she would have known about that. Now, I was stupid. I was young and stupid in those days. I didn't know what it was. So when I had a guy that said, I'm taking to the submarine races, I jumped out of the car and ran to the edge of the LSU lake, and I'm looking down the lake going, how are we going to see when the submarines are racing? How will we know? Do they have lights on them? I had all those questions, but that's just me. But Lori was upset that her mother didn't tell her. I think it's a generational thing. Mothers in that age did not tell us to watch out for the tricks of the males. So because I only have 2 short chapters in the book, and I've just given you my 2 stories that I remember from the book vaguely, I'm just going to have to go over the 2 short chapters. One of the chapters from The Power of the Transformed Wife that I got is called Birth Control and Having Children. I think it should be called Liar, Liar, Pants on Fire instead. Why? We start with Lori claiming that since men are always ready for sex and women crave sex the most when they're ovulating, that means God wants us all to have as many children as possible as soon as possible. Then she moves on to the not so truth-filled part of her chapter. Worse than that, the side effects of any kind of birth control. She repeated the easily debunked lie that birth control pills cause tiny little abortions abortions. Numerous science-based organizations show that claim is a lie. That's not exactly how they work. Pills prevent the implantation of any egg, fertilized or not, into the line of the uterus. If you pass a fertilized egg naturally, it's not the same thing because it failed to implant. And it does happen. It happens a lot more frequently than you would think. It's not the same thing as having the surgical thing, the abortion. Being on the pill is also shown to lower cancer, the risks in women of developing ovarian cancer, according to the National Cancer Institute. Ovarian cancer is one of the top killers of women still to this day. She follows her misinformation about hormonal birth control pills before moving on to the diaphragm. Quote, the diaphragm, which requires you to also use a spermicide, comes with a warning that saying it can cause cancer. Or at least it did when I used it many years ago. Okay, this is an out-and-out lie. Back in 1977, I discovered I could not use the pill or the IUD, and I ended up getting a diaphragm. This was my primary source of birth control from 1977 until becoming a quiverful mama myself in 1995. And none of my diaphragms or spermicidal jelly ever came with a cancer warning. Then she says this: the diaphragm is also uncomfortable, difficult to remove at times, and can cause toxic shock syndrome if left inside the V word too long. Okay, if you can feel your diaphragm after it's been inserted, then you've put it in wrong. It's in there the wrong way. You shouldn't be able to feel it inside of you. And the same goes with the difficulty of removal. If you're having trouble removing it, then you are probably putting it in wrong in the wrong place. And the chances of you contracting toxic shock syndrome, if you leave it in longer than 24 hours, is about 2 in 100,000 odds, according to the AMA. It does offer some protection against some types of sexually transmitted disease compared to many other methods, and it does not involve taking a synthetic hormone every day. It's also one of the most inexpensive forms of birth control you can get. Lori's book then goes on to list all the other types of common birth control: sterilization, vasectomy, interuterine device, IUD, birth control pills, condoms, and natural family planning. Oddly enough, Lori skips the more modern ones like NuvaRing and a hormone implant in your arm, or even the patches that you can put on. I've seen those. I haven't looked into birth control since I wrote this. There are probably some new methods that I am not familiar with. So don't think I'm the know-all and end-all of this. I'm clearly not. So I'm not going to debunk every lie or partially falsehood that she lists for each of these methods, but I will say she didn't list any of the benefits, only the possible side effects in the most fear-mongering of fashions. And there are big benefits to each method listed, such as a pill helps women with endometriosis, or that vasectomies are a sure method. The only side effect she lists for natural family planning is this: there are no side effects except maybe having a precious baby. I will repeat my original statement. God wants us to have children. So how does a couple decide if they're going to eschew all birth control and start popping out Duggar-defying numbers of babies they may not be able to care for? Well, if you read her writings, it seems like only the husband gets a vote in this, not the wife. She says this: each couple must decide for themselves what to do about birth control, with the husband having the final say since he is the head of the wife. If you want a lot of children but your husband does not, you must obey your husband. Okay. Well, as soon as you'll read what Lori herself didn't even do that. She justifies and simultaneously blames the husband for the decision this way. Quote, but our husbands will be the ones standing before the Lord to account for all the decisions they made it in our homes, not us. Want to bet? So burn in hell, Ken. Burn in hell. I'm channeling Lori Alexander's most secretive thoughts here. Not really, I'm joking. And I'm in a jokey mood. I ate a stale piece of apple strudel earlier, and I'm not sure it wasn't growing something on it. So I'm in one of those moods. Here's another quote from the book. When we were in our early 40s, Ken and I were convicted about having all the children God wanted us to have. But unbeknownst to us, I had a brain tumor, which caused me not to be able to conceive. Well, that tumor must be much more massive than anything the author is related to in either her blog or her book. A tumor has to be pretty good size to press on the pituitary gland enough to stop all hormone production. You know, that's unfortunately very bad timing for someone trying to be quiverful. The blog posting in this chapter is the usual evangelical pious pouting that being financially and emotionally ready for children is a foolish reason to delay having babies. It's wise, not foolish, to wait until you're ready for most folks. Then Lori leaves us with her own story of expanding her family, and it's a bad one. It bears repeating. Lori quote, "When Ken told me I could stay at home full time after I had my second baby, I was a full-time school teacher. I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom so badly that I put a hole in my diaphragm and we conceived Ryan." I have this to say about that. If you're thinking about it, don't do this. Do not do this. I cannot emphasize enough how bad an idea this is. We're talking about bringing a living, breathing human being with needs, a soul, and it takes massive commitment needs into what sounds like a less than ideal relationship. It's not a puppy or a houseplant. This is a decision that you must make together. Lifetime commitment. It costs a lot to raise a child these days. Lori says afterwards not to do this, but hey, just by mentioning it in her book, I'm sure she's giving some quiverful wannabe mamas with an uncooperative spouse a very bad idea right about now. So to recap the chapter, all birth control is the evils. It will visually give you the cancers. If you want enough children to populate a little league team and your husband says no, it's okay because Satan gets to torture him for all time and eternity for not picking the right answer. Oh, wow. And the other chapter is a lengthy one the chapter was actually not very long, but my response to it was incredible, so long. So I'm going to try to condense this down and not take you through it word for word because it is a bad one. It has to do with finances. It's called Talking About Your Finances, and it makes me so sad to read this. I'm mostly sad because of two reasons. First, this is a tremendous opportunity here to give good advice. It could have eased the financial burdens for a lot of people, but it's misused. It's also written entirely from the perspective of somebody who is upper middle class or upper class that doesn't understand the realities of poverty or finances beyond the most basic of levels. She talks about how to pinch every penny so that you have income and harps on the fact that many people have credit cards and use them, but doesn't address issues that come up to have more income in creative ways. Even mom holding a part-time job or coming up with a way to make money. She just starts moaning about those pesky smartphones and other luxuries, just like Utah's Jason Chavez about how the poor should be spending their thousands on health care instead of iPhones. Poor blaming, class warring your way out of poverty. It's just unbelievable. She starts the chapter by talking about what consumer debt is and how most everybody in the country is horribly in debt and they can't tell the difference between wants and needs. And here's a quote. "Please know that Ken and I have been there. We've had our money struggles." Really? Please elucidate, since nothing I've ever come across on her blog ever indicates that she ever struggled with money, ever. She references having to eat tuna at one point as their struggle. Oh my goodness. There are times when I would have been happy to eat tuna and I was having to eat beans because I had two kids in college at the same time, or I had horrible illness, various things. So I understand that. When I was in college, it was a crazy time for me. I was also scrimping and saving like crazy. And there are times when you're in those kind of situations, you have to decide: do I get the car fixed or do I eat? Do I pay the electric bill or do I eat? Just things like that. And that's the kind of poverty that is not overcome with lecturing somebody on wants versus needs, or not buying iPhones, not using credit cards. Usually it helps if you can upgrade your work situation and skills, usually through additional education if you can swing it. to get a better paying job so you can slowly dig yourself out of your debt situation. That's if nothing disastrous derails all of this, because we all know that happens. Um, Paul Ryan said some horrible things at one point, and Alternate had a really good article called Six Things Paul Ryan Doesn't Understand About Poverty. I highly recommend it. Um, let me go to this. Talking about she's talked about families living from paycheck to paycheck and acts like this is some kind of surprising thing. No, especially right now. That's why I'm talking about this right now, because there's so many people that are struggling to deal with the poverty, not the poverty, the rising prices of everything in the U.S. And it's all over the news now, and about how in sad shape people are. We've had a pandemic. We had people that lost their jobs. There have been rising prices, all kinds of reasons. Lori goes on to claim that with judicious purchasing, you can save several $100s or perhaps even $1,000 a month. But see, sweetheart, if you're an undereducated man working for a minimum wage, unskilled job with zero worker protections, supporting a stay-at-home wife, having a baby every 18 months, because they're quiverful, there is never going to be thousands of dollars in savings a month. I don't care if they only shop secondhand stores in the Dollar Tree. That income is never going to be enough, which is one of the big problems of the evangelical world. Everybody has no real education and no birth control, but they expect everybody else to help support them. It's wishful thinking at best. It's generational poverty, and there's no easy answer for generational poverty. And I've saw that in my old church so many times. Lori says this, better yet, I think the transformed wife can be part of the solution to this problem. This allows Lori to start riffing on stay-at-home mothers, how they have the time to cook from scratch, clean their own homes so they don't need a maid, like Lori had, like some of us have. You're not even allowed to worry about the lack of finances or extreme poverty you find yourself in because you're, quote, trusting God. Just as God can direct you to a dependable used car that won't break every month, He can also help you find a much-needed used pair of soccer shoes at a garage sale. I get it. Saving money does take time and intentionality. While buying used and saving the difference is a good way to stretch a dollar, not everyone, including quiverful mothers, have the time to do things that take that much time. Particularly not with the other things that Lori orders them to do. Homeschool their children, cook from scratch, clean the house. Well, you get the idea. Lori, our consumer society encourages us to overspend and to, let me move my camera thingy again so I can read this a little bit because I don't remember what it said. Okay. And to believe that more is always better. Who's telling anybody that? You know, there's some truth to that statement. That's what advertising agencies do. They create a need from a want to fatten their clients' bottom line. Knowing that makes resisting that type of advertising easier. So does keeping a smaller number of possessions. Going and sort through your possessions with an eye to give them away every couple times a year, or to get rid of those things you don't use. I had to do that moving here, and then when I moved here and had some of my shipping seized. And I found I really did not need the things that I thought I needed. Do not. Lori does not suggest you educate yourself and your family on being cautious about advertising or any sort of keeping down the number of things she owns. She blames it squarely on the fact that we have a huge number of stores at our disposal, bemoaning that it's not like some years ago where your only option was to order these things from Montgomery Ward's catalog and wait avidly for the Wells Fargo wagon to show up in your rural town. And then she talks about dealing with the debt you already have. Lori quote, "You should live within your means and only buy what you can afford." Again, thank you, Captain Obvious. Nobody argues with that. Oh, but see, that's the thing with the things going on in our world, especially now. And I wrote this thing 7 years ago or so. Things are so messed up still that it's just not possible. That's the thing. There's nothing in this world wrong with credit. What's wrong is borrowing beyond your ability to pay it back and living above your means. That means people end up owing large amounts of money to creditors. It turns into kind of a financial bondage and hardship. It leads you into having much higher percentage of personal bankruptcies. Like at my old church, we had more people that had bankruptcies than in the national average. I did research that. And huge credit card debt. Lori says this about paying back your excessive debts. It may be foregoing a family trip or tightening up the shopping trips. You think? The shopping budget for the next year. No, no, no. This is not the debt reality. Most of the big families I know, most of the quiverful families I know, and knew in my old church. We're talking about people who only had one beater car to get around in, and they only were able to get another one when someone in a better financial situation, our old church, donated the old car to them. I saw that happen again and again. There are people that put off having medical treatment until something is a hideous emergency. People that feed their children food fit for animals, not like your heroes, like her hero, the Pearl family did. That type of hardcore poverty that many of her readers live in, skipping a family vacation or getting Aldi's brand bread instead of Roman meal, isn't going to make much of a dent on that kind of debt. And here's how you handle and win against debt. First, most communities have their own locally funded and run debt counseling services, like the ones you see listed on TV, but legitimate nonprofit organizations like the Consumer Credit Counseling Services. Their employees will sit down with you, your bills, and your projected income and help you work out a livable budget. Sometimes they will deal with your creditors and get interest reductions or have the interest waived and the late fees waived for you, bringing down your debt even quicker. There are even Christian credit counseling services you could go to if that's what you want. Sometimes churches will offer these financial courses, and as much as I don't really like the guy, Dave Ramsey, or something like Crown Financial Ministries, consider at least attending a few lessons. While both of these are the old system of budgeting that had been around since like the mid-1800s, and it may not work for everybody. It gives you an education on how to budget. And the thing to learn, a key to turning your situation now, more than any Lori's advice, is stay home and pinch a penny while praying for those soccer shoes. It will give you the kind of education you need in order to be able to make those decisions. Here's one, another Lori quote. Saving money on household items may allow you to support that missionary family you met on furlough, or let you financially respond when your church announces a building drive. Yeah, while having some funds set aside to bless those you want to bless, it's not a bad idea. This notion of Lori's that any of her followers are just a couple of homemade meals or pizzas away from a frozen or takeout from being able to donate is a pretty laughable one. It's a childish one. This all leads to a 5-page rant on the evils of credit cards. Quote, I can't believe how many people think that a credit card doesn't have to be paid in full each and every month. Really? She does not bring out Chavez's iPhone, but Lori goes on a long thing about buying an Apple Watch on a credit card and how long it would take you, plus the cost when you finance it on a credit card. She claims some astronomically high interest rates are on credit cards without making the connection between credit scores and interest rates. The higher your credit score is, can mean the difference between some very low interest rate cards and paying fees and interest that should be illegal. They're so high. This is particularly a problem I've seen on one income families when something happens to the father and the mother suddenly finds she has no credit history or a low credit score and finds out she only qualifies for high interest cards or loans. What every woman can do for herself is to intentionally just establish credit in their own name, even if they're a stay-at-home mother. A small balance credit card to start, and paying it every month, charges a couple of little things, pay it down, your score will keep going up every single month you do this. If you're borrowing a small amount and faithfully paying it back on time every month. What that means is if one of those horrible things happen and you are on your own, you already have some established credit, which some employers actually require that for work. And here's where Lori really misses her opportunity with credit cards. You can actually make money or save large amounts just by taking advantage of some of the programs. Example, I got several free trips just by signing up for a credit card through the airline we always use. They gifted us with enough flying points to go anywhere and back for free. When I got my Amazon card, I was given a $100 credit to use on anything Amazon sells. There are offers like that available just about everywhere. Many stores will offer a discount on your first day's purchase with the new store credit cards. So that's how you use credit cards to make money. That's not even taking into consideration the many cards that will pay your percentage of what you purchase back on everything you buy, whether it's gas or groceries or whatever, maximizing that discount for to as close as 5% back on everything. So all of this depends upon you paying off the card every month or paying a large portion of it every month. But since Lori is only concentrating on how to cut expenses, somebody has to step in and point out all the obvious things that she misses here and how to cut expenses. Your credit buying power can save you money, and she doesn't say that. Knowing how to use your credit to your advantage is just as important as learning how to budget and save money. Lori doesn't touch on any other kind of savings, except to say buying used is the savings you can get to keep by keeping your house in good mechanical working order, doing upgrades, not rushing down the thrift store to only buy old appliances. You should be replacing your old appliances with newer ones with better Energy Star ratings. It can save you money, as well as the many small steps you can take at your home, like being mindful about how much electricity you're using. It's not spending money. It's investing in your biggest asset, your home, making it worth more. She doesn't touch on something else very important, the need to save and invest. It's great if you're saving, you're putting your extra money aside. But let's face it, most banks are just offering a very low interest savings account, and you're missing half the picture when you do that. You should be investing some of your savings into something else that will pay you a higher percentage. Many brokerage and investment places like Vanguard or TD Ameritrade will let you open an account with very little money so that you can invest in the future. Money and credit are tools designed to help you achieve whatever it is you want from the future. Do you want to support missionaries? It's easier to do if you got money. Want to go on a mission trip yourself, send your kids to college, go on a around the world trip for free? Proper handling your finances is your first step. To me, this is one of the biggest failures of this entire book and the world of evangelical churches and families, the failure to teach people how to handle what money they have coming in. It goes well beyond figuring out how to buy, use, and save the difference, like the Duggars say. You must know how to grow what you have. Even the Duggars have the potential to go broke if they don't learn how to handle that sweet, sweet reality TV money that Jim Bob has been squirreling away. So it's by following these rules that we've been able to put enough together to live here. I'm just going to say it. Hey, we sent our kids to college and paid entirely. It's allowed us to relocate here. We've had our tight times, and I've had to been the kind of thrifty that Lori talks about. But she misses a lot of important things. Here's my list. Don't go overboard on buying things. Use, reuse, or give away on a regular basis. Understand your credit options and your credit score. Get help from credit professionals if you end up in a credit crunch. Establish credit in your own name and make every effort to pay off your credit cards monthly or as quickly as you can. Take advantage of the free money offers and percentage back offers. Invest in your home. Don't let your savings languish at a low interest rate. Educate yourself on your own finances. Don't depend upon your husband to do it all. Know about it yourself so you can intelligently discuss it with him, if nothing else. Do comparisons of costs and values when you're shopping. Sometimes the cheapest option will cost more in the long run. Take advantage of financial planning classes in your area. And if you're not sure where these are held, your pastor or folks at social services you should have a list of options for financial education, for free financial education. If income is less than expenses, find a creative way to increase your family income. That might be education towards a better job, a part-time service you could provide to make more money. But most importantly, here's the most important thing about your financial life. Make sure your spouse and you are in complete agreement over what happens with your money coming in. None of this advice is worth a hill of beans if one partner is scrimping and the other is blowing income on frivolities like skydiving lessons or get rich quick schemes. These are both true stories from my old church. Lori misses that this unity and agreement must happen for a family to succeed. It has nothing to do with any notion of submission either. Another part of that unity is allowing your partners to do those tasks they're personally best suited for. My husband handles the day-to-day of our checking accounts. I've always looked at the investments, the stocks, and the bonds. Lately, he's even taken that over, and that's fine for us. It's good to have both partners involved. It's really too much for one person alone. At the very least, you must discuss it. Not only are they you to have unity, there's got to be grace, love, and mercy in it. If you and your husband are saving up for a down payment on a home and he comes home one night after a discouraging long day at work with a takeout pizza that you've agreed that you're going to forgo for a while, recognize that his slip up in your agreement, it might be the very thing he needs in that moment. Forgive, forget, and move on. Offer him mercy, grace, and love. Start anew tomorrow on that budget. I'm sorry I'm so long-winded with this, but Lori has skipped so much vital information that has to be discussed for the financial health of people's families. I would hate to see anybody flounder for lack of information. And those are the only two chapters that I've been able to pull out of my notes and my writing. That financial one I've been wanting to do anyway for a long time because I think it's important that we talk about these things. This is not how we usually do things in the church with the way money is handled. It's mostly like Lori says. The sad thing is that's not a good way to do it. Okay, so I'm pretty much done now. Thank you for watching. Like I said, this is just my opinions. Don't go harass Lori in any way, shape, or form. That poor thing. She needs all the help she can get. And I think when people go after her, they just make her worse, unfortunately. Love you guys. Have a really great Saturday.